I took these photos at the site of one of the largest mass graves in Syria. This trench in Nasha Cemetery is 77 feet long, 13 feet deep, 4 feet wide, and is one of the many trenches that was built by the Assad regime to hide the bodies of the people that had disappeared. Throughout the civil war, the Assad regime used the forced disappearance of people as a tool to instill fear. We interviewed more than 20 people for this story. We talked to one man who lives right next to Nasha Cemetery. He had more than a dozen relatives who disappeared. He thinks it's possible that some of those relatives could be buried in Nasha Cemetery. This didn't start as an industrial scale mass burial operation. It started off very small. We see trucks that match what our witnesses described that would come to bring bodies to bury in these tombs. So instead of putting one person into a tomb, the regime would put many people into a single tomb. Over time, the system of burying bodies at Nasha developed. It went from putting bodies in existing tombs in this area to then moving down to this area and digging deep pits that could fit dozens or hundreds of bodies. And then around 2018, they start digging these long trenches that can fit hundreds of bodies. Some of these trenches are more than 300 feet long, and what we see is that they're dug out and then filled with bodies from one end to the other. Nasha was one of the earliest mass graves in Syria, but it was not the only one. It's impossible to know how many bodies were put in mass graves like this. The bodies that were being buried in Nasha and other mass graves would come from Tishreen and Harasta Military Hospital, as well as Sednaya Prison, and from the various intelligence branches. There are estimates now that more than 160,000 people who were forcibly disappeared are still missing. For families to really get answers about what happened to their friends and relatives, the areas would need to be excavated and the bodies exhumed. They would need to do thousands of DNA tests. Right now, these resources don't exist on this scale in Syria. For some families in Syria, they may never know what happened to their loved ones or where their bodies were laid to rest.